Okay, so once again, good morning everyone. So our next topic for today is about guidelines for implementing e-government projects successfully. So it is very important, of course, for us to understand on how project management, no, or the implementation of a project, no. But of course, we need to follow some guidelines and procedures for us to have a good or a successful project implementations. So for us to discuss about the e-government project successfully implementation, let us all welcome Sir Madam Locsin. Go ahead, Madam.
Good morning po, Doc. Good morning, classmates. So I will be discussing about the guidelines for implementing e-government project successfully or the life cycle of an e-government project. So before I'm gonna start my presentation, I would like to give some overview siguro po about e-government. So to start with, according to Diana Frost and Benita Lal, the author of the e-government project design in developing countries, successful outcomes of an e-government project are dependent on a continued assessment of the project during its entire life cycle, from the initial analysis or the pre-design phase to any post-implementation activities. Any such process should necessarily be rooted in a stakeholder-centric process which makes explicit both the desired of the current outcomes and which supports the managed alignment of these throughout the project lifecycle. To fully understand po the implementation of e-government project, let us first discuss the so-called life cycle of e-government project. Next slide, please. So that's the project life cycle po ng project sa e-governance. So let's discuss first the phase 1 or the vision and strategy development or the e-governance strategy development.
Okay, excuse me, Madam. Class, kindly understand it well because most of the time kasama sa comprehensive exam itong itong e-governance project life cycle. Okay, sige, go ahead, ma'am.
Yes. So the vision and strategy development, here it involves the following various key activities like needs assessment, define clear definition and objectives, prioritization of services and projects, incorporate domestic and global learnings, identify institutional structures and capacities for implementation, define funding requirements, and define monitoring and evaluation approach. So like, since meron po tayong subject noon about visioning, so it's the same. Kumbaga, before we have a project, we have to envision ano ba yung purpose, ano ba yung need para magkaroon po tayong ng objective. So that's the vision and strategy development. Next slide po. In phase 1, here are the key activities na talagang nangyayari. So yun nga po yung kaninang in-enumerate ko, like the need assessment. Phase 1 includes assessment of department functions and services. Services listing and prioritization based on vision and objectives, identification po ng projects for achieving the vision and objectives and prioritization projects, and of course, definition ng expected benefits or outputs and outcomes, definition of course ng implementation roadmap and timelines, definition of institutional structures required, including roles and responsibilities for implementation of identified projects, assessment of funding requirements for implementation, risk assessment and mitigation measures definition, and monitoring and evaluation framework. So yun nga po yung tulad na nabanggit ko kanina. Mahalaga din po na magkaroon po tayo ng timeline kung kailan po dapat na-achieve na natin yung objective po for this certain project. Next slide po. The next phase or the second phase is the current state assessment. Current state assessment involves various activities like performing an in-depth assessment of business functions and services identified for coverage under e-governance project to understand the current approach for performing the business functions and service delivery. Another is to understand the key challenges and to identify improvement areas. Another one is the stakeholder needs and expectations, and the current systems or the IT systems implemented in the department coverage and gaps. Another is the organization structures and people capacities. Next slide po. So yan po yung mga key outputs or deliverables po natin under phase 2. The process, the IT environment, and the people environment. Outcomes for this phase are process maps. So yun pong nakikita po natin dyan. Initial improvement areas, dito po sa environment, the stakeholder needs, the IT systems, scope, and functionality. IT infrastructure, which is the network, security, and the data center, organizational structures, roles and responsibilities and capacities and skill sets. So yan po. More on focus po siya sa environment and the needs po ng ating end users or the stakeholder needs po. Next slide po. So the third phase is the future state definition. In here, the defined future state or to be definition, this phase we're in, we have to define, of course, how identified businesses functions and services shall be performed going forward. We have to define also the new business processes, define IT solutions and services for automation of new business processes, define people change management, capacity building, and communication requirements for project implementation. Next slide, please. The definition phase involves various tasks like defining how identified business functions and services shall be performed, listing IT solutions and services for automation of new business processes, outlining the change management, capacity building, and communication requirements for project implementation. This phase has many deliverable. Ito po yung nakikita po natin sa slide. As newer business processes with their metrics, functional architecture, and requirements specifications, data digitization and migration strategy, training and capacity building plan, and change management plan. So that's the output or deliverables under po this phase. Next slide po. The fourth phase is the implementation approach and sourcing. This phase consists of various tasks like development of implementation approach and plan, development of business model, and the end user or the supplier evaluation and selection din. In this phase, next slide po. In this phase also has many deliverables as implementation approach and plan, implementation timelines, monitoring and evaluation plan, project investments and cost. So dito na din po natatackle yung costings for the project, request for proposals, contract and agreements, and vendor evaluation reports, and signed contract documents. So parang dito makikita po natin parang medyo same po siya sa bidding process kasi meron part po dito ng bidding process is yung pre-bid, kumbaga before the bidding. So pinag-uusapan po pre-procurement, lahat na po ng concern ng project dito po under yung mga yon. Next slide po. The fifth phase is the develop and implement IT systems. Next slide, sir. So, ito po yung atin pong deliverables or key outputs. It consists of activities of application software development, IT infrastructure creation, third-party acceptance testing and training, and capacity building. It results in a ready-to-use e-governance software and IT infrastructure. So, ito na po, medyo andito na po tayo sa, kumbaga meron na tayong system na nagagamit, which is, sabi nga po, ready to use na, But somehow, nakalagay nga po, develop and implement. We have to develop pa din kahit na nag-i-implement kasi meron at meron po tayong makikitang gap sa implemented project. Next slide po. The last phase is the operate and sustain. So like what I said kanina, we have to observe, we have to see ano pa po yung kailangan nating i-develop so that ma-sustain po natin yung operation ng project. In this phase, the key activities are, next slide, sir. System operations and maintenance, software change management, rollout services and systems functionality and geography, objectives and benefits evaluation and reinforcement, sustained change, capacity building, and communications. In this phase has key activities of IT systems, operations, and maintenance, as well as monitoring and evaluation. So, hindi lang po kumbaga, continuous change po yung makikita po natin dito para nga po masustain po natin and to fully utilize the project. Next slide po. So, yan po kung makikita po natin, yan po yung summary ng ating project life cycle, and makikita po natin kung ano yung mga key activities, outputs, and deliverables po natin. So, yan po yung summary ng ating life cycle for the project under e-governance. Next slide, sir. So, next naman po, we'll be tackling about the project management and its risk in e-governance. So, project management, the E in the e-governance stands for electronic. The term refers to the use of ICTs to convert and support a governance systems, techniques, and structures. E-governance entails making and implementing decisions, maintaining proper leadership, streamlining organizational activities, securing resources and funding, establishing accountability, and measuring success. The fulfillment of an e-governance project depends upon the holistic integration of the best governance practices within a business venture. E-governance is not merely the procurement of hardware and different networking equipment to create a technology-enabled project. Instead, it integrates the diverse fields of project management used to develop a comprehensive administration system. So project management daw, in implementing project management, e-governance use available technologies to develop matrices and performance indicators that enable the organization board, the stakeholders, and sponsors to monitor and assist current and future projects. Next slide, sir. But what are the risks and challenges under the project management po ng e-governance? So, in here, controlling risk is an essential part of project management. The primary concern of risk management is to resolve uncertainties related to the project completion process. Here po sa figure, it shows the risk positions in the project life cycle. So halimbawa po sa project launch, makikita natin kung saan po tayo medyo magkakaroon ng risk. Yung here po makikita natin ang risk po sa first phase is dun po kung paano natin identify yung scope natin and yung goal. So kanina nga po sabi ko dapat may timeline tayo, may boundaries po tayo. So ito yung nakikitang risk po natin for the phase 1. So combining risk to the cycle, it is clear that e-governance model includes the task of risk management in its process. Risk concerning e-governance is mainly associated with arising issues with IT, which is unfortunately a common occurrence. So according to Marjac po, in his book, another set of risks can be labeled as hazards when overseeing a project virtually. These hazards can be mistrust, cliques, uninformed managers, and the allure of other exciting but unrelated work. Nonetheless, the resolution of risk and issues still depends on precise mitigation strategies executed quickly and efficiently. So napaka-importante po na meron po tayong monitoring and evaluation because pag na-oversee po natin yung risk, baka hindi po maging, kumbaga yung expected po natin efficiency ng project, hindi po natin ma-meet. So dapat po magkaroon po ng consistent monitoring and evaluation for the project. Next slide po. The emerging practices to strategically plan and transform the service delivery. So para po magkaroon po tayo ng maayos na project implementation, we must realign government service delivery with the citizens' focus. So tulad nga po kanina sa phase 1, hindi lang po tayo basta-basta nag-create ng ating objectives, ng ating goal, para lang po sa wala. We have to put our shoes po bilang nagsuserve sa mamamayan kung ano po ba yung kailangan nila para yung project po na i-implement po natin is ma-meet po natin yung expectation ng end user natin, which is the citizen or ang atin pong mamamayang Pilipino. So improve transparency, accountability, and trust in the government. So like what Sir Jobo kanina na diniscuss, mahalaga po yung transparency sa gobyerno and lalong-lalo na po sa projects. Kaya nga po nandiyan yung COA to audit and to show kung ano man po yung mga malicious or mga hindi po tamang gawain, which mainly focus po sa budgeting din. Improve the citizen experience in government transactions, reducing time, cost, and administration burden for government agencies. So, tulad nga po ng once na ma-implement po yung project, dapat po efficient to. We have to use the least time para makapag-transact ng isang procedure or para ma-accommodate natin yung need ng isang client. So bilang sa NIA po, halimbawa, dapat meron po kaming, dapat masunod po namin yung sineset na time para i-accommodate ang isang client kasi napakahalaga ng time for our clients kasi minsan may time na halimbawa yung client from Manila pa siya. So napakahalaga na i-accommodate agad siya and use lahat ng resources natin na pwede para or our skills bilang po kasi parang face-to-face po kasi yung nangyayari. So dapat maging alert din po. Ganun din po sa system natin. Dapat kahit na online or e-government po yung na tayo ngayon, dapat na-accommodate po din natin yung needs ng mga clients natin. Di po ba? Kasi may transactions tayo na we're asking about magkano na po yung nababayaran natin halimbawa sa SSS. So, through online, nakikita na natin siya. Pero, syempre, kung may lapses man doon, we have to go there personally sometimes or kung hindi man po, the agency will just email us. So, ganun pong mga transaction ngayon para hindi natin, kumbaga yung burden sa client ay malesen. So, yun po yung purpose po natin sa e-government. Next slide po. Part pa din po ng risk or challenges po ng ating current environment on e-governance or implementation po ng project. Many of the projects are towards computerization but not modernization. Kumbaga, marami sa atin tinatamad na magta-type. So, parang ang nakikita nila sa e-governance, hindi siya modernization. Kumbaga, pinapadali lang niya yung buhay natin kasi parang nakikita naman na agad. Pero, parang ano ang tawag doon, hoax, na parang computerization lang siya. Pero, hindi nila nakikita na e-governance is a modernization. Significant investment into projects with minimal impact improvement in service delivery and administration, minimal online or self-services to the stakeholders. Ito po, kumbaga, nakabangga ito sa end user or sa ating mga clienteles kasi hindi lahat ng tao marunong mag-computer. Kaya kahit na gustuhin po nating i-fully establish yung e-governance sa country or sa mundo, may mga klaseng clients tayo na hindi sila knowledgeable sa pag-use ng computers, ng online sites. So, yun po yung nakikitang challenge po sa implementation ng projects. IT-enabled processes with no improvement in the service levels. So, kumbaga, once na nagawa na yung system or yung mismong site, minsan hindi na nila ini-improve. Actually, may ganun kasi sa amin, yung PPMP po namin ay posted po siya. We have to, the back secretariat will encode it online, and then, kumbaga, nakikita namin na parang nag-encode kami ng PPMP na deduct yung mga pinopurchase, pero parang ganun na lang, wala silang improvement sa system na magkaroon man lang ng check and balance. Kumbaga, ito yung actual amount sa PPMP, and then kumbaga makikita na agad yung naliles mo or napopurchase mo para nababantayan mo yung actual amount na lang na pwede mong i-expense. Parang ganon. So we have to think bilang sa mga nag-i-implement po ng e-governance, dapat makita nila na kailangan may improvement pa din kahit na implemented yung project. Projects not completed in time. So may mga targets tayo, but of course, may mga nadidelay po. So dapat yon nakikita natin, kung merong plan A, merong plan B. So IT systems not meeting the business requirements. So kumbaga minsan may mga kumbaga halimbawa binid natin yung isang project, nakuha po ng isang supplier or isang company. Minsan yung mga specs na siniset ng isang gobyerno, hindi nila na-meet. So, yun yung mga medyo talagang focus ngayon kasi hindi lahat ng gusto nating i-implement minsan hindi na-meet ng supplier or ng agency or ng company. Next slide po. Some key factors contributing to current environment. These are the following. First is the project design is incompatible with the current readiness and environment. The least time spent by the organizations in planning and design. Kumbaga, hindi masyadong napaglaanan ng time. Lack of clear and measurable project goals. Sabi nga natin, dapat meron na dun pa lang po sa phase 1, nakikita na natin kung na-anticipate na natin yung time, yung boundary, lahat ng pwedeng maging problems during the implementation ng project, dapat na foresee na natin. Kung meron mang hindi, at least meron po tayong may mga plan B po tayo or hanggang kung anong plan po yun. So larger emphasis on IT enablement with minimal focus on business benefits. Basta meron na lang po tayong ma-project kahit hindi naman po nakikita kung ano yung purpose or kung sino-sino nakararami ba yung benefit for this project. Ganun po. Minimal focus on project and systems quality assurance. Poor communication to the stakeholders and users on objectives and benefits, and adequate resources for project. Siyempre, funding po talaga yung pinakamahalaga dyan. People, ngayon po kasi, sometimes merong fund, pero mahirap din kung walang skilled na tao po to fully implement the project. Lalo po ngayon, hindi naman po basta IT ka, hindi naman basta talagang maalam. So, thankful din tayo kasi si Dean tinuruan tayo ng mag-present din online kasi yung sa project, halimbawa sa PowerPoint po, hindi ko pa din po hindi ko po yun matututunan kung hindi din i-share ni Dean. So, we're lucky na na-share din po ni Dean how. So, ano pa po? Senior leadership attention towards e-governance initiatives is minimal, often regarded as a low priority. Lack of stable project and permanent leadership with managerial powers to drive projects. So, ito po talaga yung in my opinion po, ito po talaga yung isa pa. Kasi kahit na may fund, kung sino yung mga nakaupo minsan kasi hindi natin may iwasan or mostly kasi sila pa yung imbis na maganda yung magiging outcome ng project, medyo kaltas na kasi kahit papano may power sila dun sa funding. Or minsan sila na kung sino yung kakilala nila, doon nila i-award sa paggawa ng project. Next po. What we need for a more robust approach for e-governance. So, to support government's education organizations in e-governance, we have to get it right for the first time. Kumbaga, mahirap po magkamali kasi ito pinondohan, pera ng mamamayan. So, kailangan po nating aralin talaga, maging maging maselan, maging mapili, maging knowledgeable, hindi yung maging sensitive, hindi yung basta-basta tayong gagawin tong project na to kasi pinopondohan po ito at pinag-iisipan po talaga. Orient project designs with stakeholder focus and needs. So like what I said kanina, we have to put our shoes sa mga stakeholders natin, sa mga end users, and sa mga magbe-benefit nito kasi kung isa sa alang-alang lang natin yung kumbaga iuna natin yung pansarili para lang we have to make this project design kasi meron namang kaming makukuhang cash or meron namang incentive or bayad kami dito for this project. Hindi po ganun. Dapat ilipat natin yung paa natin sa sapatos ng iba para makita natin kung ano talaga yung kailangan. Achieve heightened focus on business and stakeholders benefits. So same lang din po. Prioritization of requirements in line with business and stakeholder needs. Prioritize the needs of our stakeholders. Support in adoption of best practices and right approach of each phase. Manage the private sector's participation and project delivery to the results. Phased implementation with minimal impact and maximum results to stakeholders. Yun po yung napakamahalaga na dapat pong i-focus po natin. Kumbaga, ma-maximize po yung efficiency ng project, lalo na sa implementation po. So, napakahalaga na may consistent monitoring and evaluation. So, I think that would be all. Thank you for listening, classmate. Thank you po.